Hello, my friends and NatSec nerds. Welcome back to a new episode of the End of the Week, a national defense and international relations news review and commentary podcast. I am your host, Morgan Huston, aka Whiskey Mo, the internet's least famous academic. I'm a scholar of national defense policy, irregular warfare, air power, history, and information. It did grow this week. It did grow. I've been reading a lot about the history of the decline and fall of the British Empire, and it's been very interesting. And it's apropos this week as this episode drops on the 4th of July, 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, declaring independence from the Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is a whole thing, and now one of our greatest allies with a special relationship. But yeah, so happy Independence Day to all of my American watchers and viewers. I hope that you have a safe, especially if you live out in the Mountain West like I do. Please don't light off any fireworks, please. We've got enough fires as it is. I hope you have a safe and wonderful holiday weekend. Crack open some beers, make a cocktail, have some hot dogs. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. This week, we've got just one story and one bit of commentary. We're going to talk about a spy list, kind of weird. And then we are also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've seen are surrounding the concept and idea of patriotism. All right, first story. This week, reporting in the New York Times has come about where the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has been pressuring intelligence agencies, specifically the FBI and the CIA, to generate and send forth a list of targets of foreign interference and foreign investigation. Currently, as we speak, the organizations have been very reluctant and resistant to create such a list and to send it forward. They seem to be winning in this kind of behind the door battle between the current administration and intelligence agencies. This goes back to the first Trump administration with an executive order that President Trump signed about crafting a list of foreign intelligence threats. And the concept, from what I can understand, is that they are wanting to create a list similar to the no-fly list. Now, the reluctance of the intelligence agencies is that this is not just a list of dangerous people who may be committing terrorist acts. For the FBI, the risk is that these are people that they want to investigate and maybe arrest, and they don't want the possibility of a list of people like this being breached or hacked, or for the targets of these investigations to come to find out that they are under investigation and change their behavior so that they can still be investigated. On the CIA side, the one of the big issues here is that these are actually possible targets that could be utilized as assets to gain intelligence from any number of nations, because even within the great game of state, we do spy on our allies. It's shock if you didn't know that. Yes, we do spy on our allies. But I hope that you can understand why this is why these agencies are so reluctant. It's interesting, right? Because in the past, in the 60s and 70s, the CIA was very much a more liberal leaning organization when it came to the employees, and that has shifted since the 80s. It is now a much more Republican based organization. Same thing with the FBI. It's very, very right leaning when it comes to this. But you can see that this is not a political hot button issue. What this is a standards and practices problem, where we have to be concerned about the way that this information will be handled, about what is on it, about how we came about this information. This goes back to one of the things that happened prior to even the first Trump administration. If y'all remember Valerie Plum, she was a CIA operative whose name had been released and her identity was blown while she was still working for the company. And it was extremely problematic, because that just blew the cover, and all the work that person had done, that she had done while she was in a place trying to do the nation's work. And it's one of those things. It's like, why would we want to risk this? And what it feels like to me is that the White House wants to have micromanagement control over operations and intelligence operations. And while they are, like the famous sign, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was FDR, but one of the presidents had a sign that said the buck stops here. And that's important. Like, the president is ultimately responsible for what happens within the executive branch and the executive agencies. The thing is that they shouldn't have their fingers in everything, because they're like, what right now, the president is not an intelligence expert. They're not a former operative. He has no experience in the intelligence world. The current acting DNI, as we have talked about previously, has no background in intelligence whatsoever, has no experience in the intelligence world. And while you may think, wait, Morgan, you said the FBI. Yeah, the FBI is a counterintelligence organization. In fact, they are the lead agency when it comes to counterintelligence here within the United States, which means countering other nations' intelligence activities against us. And so there's concerns like there, and I think it's rightful. Like, I do believe that the National Security Council, the Office of DNI, the president do need to be kept abreast of operations and things that are happening, but they don't need the minutia. They don't need to know names. They don't need to know the nitty gritty of operations, because unfortunately, as we have seen, and as they try and stop, which they never will, there's leaks. The president, unfortunately, sometimes just says things, and it doesn't seem like he necessarily thinks it through. So there's repercussions for that. So we want to make sure that we have some safety net here. And this is really just one of those things where I think people in politics need to understand their role. Yes, they have an oversight role. They have a commanding role. It's really important for civilian oversight of both the intelligence community, the military, all of these things. It's really, really important. But once you start meddling in affairs where you don't have the expertise, that's when people get hurt, and that's when people die, and the nation's safety is at risk here. So national security is really important, and this is one of those things where, while I think the intent is probably going to be somewhat okay, like they're not desiring to actively harm the United States in their actions. I think the biggest problem, though, is that they may not understand how their actions could affect national security on even the smallest level. Like, it's just a bad idea to have such a list created in the first place. It'd be like creating a list of our agents that could be out there. Like, do you really want to subject that to scrutiny that could be hacked, that could be, because like these things are kept in such secure locations and on such secure servers that it would take some of the most skilled hackers forever to get into it. And I don't know if the White House necessarily is the best place to keep that information. While it's a secure place, there are secure spaces. It's just too many hands get into the pot, and then it risks overflowing and spilling, and then nothing gets done, and the soup isn't made correctly. So a little bit of a weird and not great analogy there. But I hope that we can keep track of this. I do wish the FBI and CIA luck in trying to keep this under wraps and keep the lid on it. It's going to be a tough struggle, as we've seen. The current president is very adamant about certain things, and he really just wants to know things, like all of the weird details. Like, it doesn't always make sense to me. I'm sure he's got his reasons, but in this case, I don't think this is a correct one. Now, as you can tell, this is going to be a fairly short episode, but I do have something that I did want to say. This is kind of more of a commentary and an opinion piece here. I do want to put that out, and that's why we're going to put it on the back end. Something I've been seeing a lot of, and there's always been people that have said things like this, but I believe that since about 2016, it's been kind of a resurgence, is this kind of idea of it. If you don't stand for the flag, you can get out. If you don't, this is America, love it or leave it. And I think it's important to have a discussion about what patriotism really is. In the barest sense, there are two types of feelings that can be handed in towards a nation. There's patriotism, which is love of one's nation, and two, nationalism, which is on the simplest term, love of the nation regardless of what it does. And that's dangerous. Right, you see that nationalist movements are things like that end up in fascism, things like Nazi Germany, things like fascist Italy, some of, parts of Stalinist Russia after the Soviet Union began. Like this idea that it's my country, right or wrong, and I ride and die with them. For me, one of the most important things that I think separates patriotism from nationalism is this idea that I love my nation so much that I want it to be better. That in this case with the United States, we have always upheld ourselves as the shining beacon of on the hill, to shine out, to be the moral lamppost to guide the world forward in this forward march towards democracy for the globe. And we've never fully lived up to that principle. We have conducted military operations under false pretenses. We have supported authoritarian regimes that have conducted massive human rights violations. We have enslaved humans. It took us up until within my father's lifetime to allow mixed race marriages. I mean, that was in the 70s. That's only a few years older than I am. However, I still actually do believe that this United States is the greatest nation that has ever graced the planet. We have our foibles, we have our flaws, but we have rights that we believe are inalienable, that no one else has to the extent. Our freedom of the press is at a level that is unreal. Like, even if you think about a nation like the UK, which has very significant protections on the freedom of the press, they have laws that restrict reporting over certain things, like special operations missions, things about the royals. There's a lot there that they can't report on that is very similar. And they're one of the highest rated Freedom House free nations in the world. We have, as of right now, the right to peaceably assemble. You're seeing some of that being attacked with people wanting to create free speech zones and all these things. But you have the right to assemble. You have the right to redress your nation. We have the right to believe as we see fit in a religion, or to be free from all religion. The fact that we have the rights to keep the police out of our house without a warrant, to resist unreasonable search and seizures. Like, these are amazing, amazing principles, and so many nations of the world have modeled their constitutions and their democracies after ours. Mexico, the French Revolution, it was the one after the U.S. Revolution was modeled and practiced after the U.S. and modeled after the U.S. Revolution. And we have done great things. We have helped uplift continental Africa after the great end of colonialism in the 50s and 60s. And there we faltered as well. We faltered recently. We've ended our soft power, our aid to the continent. But I willingly acknowledge the failings of my nation, because I want us as a nation to grow and change and be better. That's where my patriotism comes in. That's why I raised my right hand in August of 2000, wow, almost 26 years ago, and said, I swear to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I take that oath seriously still to this day, because I truly believe that Constitution, that embodiment of Enlightenment ideas that were broken and not completely perfect in practice, because at the time, the only people who those rights belonged to were white landed men. And as we've continued our march forward, we have now expanded those rights to black men and freed slaves, to women. And I hope one day we can ensure those rights belong to everybody. And that is where my patriotism comes in. So I ask you to caution yourself as we enter this weekend of extreme performative patriotism, that you think about the ideals of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the ideals that are espoused in the Declaration of Independence. And I highly recommend you read them. You can get a pocket Constitution and Declaration. It's a short document. This is the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. It's given out by U.S. citizens and Immigration Services. I recently read this. I've always wanted to do a series where I talk about the Constitution, the sections, the articles, the bills in the Bill of Rights, because I find it so fascinating and such a unique document that and built by such flawed yet great men. They knew in their heart of hearts that this document was incomplete, that some of the compromises that they made were going to have to be rectified, which is why they have given it the ability to be altered and changed. And that has been done so to the tune of, let me get it to you here, 27 times. 27 amendments to the Constitution. One of them is to remove a previous amendment. What other document allows you to do that? So I encourage you this July 4th weekend, Americans, take a little bit of time, reflect on the nation, what it means to grow and change. Read some of these documents and have a good beer, have a good barbecue. Raise a glass to those who didn't make it home in the many wars that have been fought in the name of this great nation. And I hope that we can all come together at some point and recognize that our long march to the best nation continues. Thank you for indulging me on that rant, everybody. I think it's a little interesting to talk about it. It's something that I have a lot of feelings about because of my service, my time, my friends who haven't made it back. So with all that being said, though, I do have to thank you for watching. Recently, I've seen a massive uptick in views. I hope it's something I did. I've been hopefully putting out better thumbnails and titles. But as always, if you find value in this, gently caress that like button. It really does help. I love, and it makes me feel better. It helps me. It helps my serotonin levels. It feels always better. And if you want to know when new videos come out, you can go ahead and hit that of the notification bell. And also, please subscribe. Subscribing, the more subscribers you have, the more likely it is that these videos will be presented to a more generalized audience. I exist in a specific niche right now, but I really hope that you will do me the favor of clicking that subscribe button. And I hope that you have gained something out of this. Also, happy birthday to the United States. Happy Independence Day to my American viewers and listeners. And as always, I hope to see you again at the end of the week.